Went to the bike store yesterday and not only found a matching handlebar tape cap, I also found not only the screw for the cable support on the frame, but I also found the support as well that's in better shape than the one that we took off the bike. And if you recall, we definitely had problems with the rear derailleur cable, as you can see from this picture. I was not only able to find a good used old stock cable for the rear derailleur, but I actually found a brand new old stock housing and cable for lever for that rear derailleur. So I matched it up with the old front derailleur and got a new housing for the front derailleur cable as well. I was also able to determine that I was incorrectly saying that the clicks or the indexing was occurring at the lever area. Upon further research, I found out the indexing is actually taking place inside the derailleur. So I think that what we're going to do on this episode is make sure that this actually works. Otherwise, we're going to have to make some major adjustments for this bicycle. That's what's happening on this episode of Featherstone Bicycles. As I said, I did some research, and on the Shimano website, they talk about the history of the Positron system. This, again, is a Positron 2, but indeed it is the precursor to the modern-day indexing system, which, of course, the indexing is at the shifter level on the handlebars. When they first came up with this idea to get away from a friction shifting system, which on their website they explained that is was something that was difficult for some people to deal with, in that you had to play with the lever in order to find the right position for the chain on the various sprockets. So they came up with this system and they decided to do it on the derailleur first. So the way this works is that instead of a spring that opens up the derailleur and moves it towards or away from each of the sprockets, if I can get this to work now. Let's see how this works. There we go. It actually has a series of detents here on an arc. So because there's no spring that's normally always forcing the derailleur away from the frame, and then the way the old friction lever system would work is that as you pulled on the lever down, it would move that derailleur away, and then as you let up, the spring action would push it back automatically. Since you don't have that spring anymore, you just have these detents, the cable actually needed to be a solid wire. Hopefully you can see that. Actually needed to be a solid wire as opposed to a normal cable, which is a threaded wire cable. That's why this thing is, these types of cables are all one piece. They all come together like this, and they're hard to find. So I was very fortunate to find a good condition used old stock one. Anyway, I want to clean this up first, make sure it's all working. Just there, what I did, going by those, seeing how that operates along those detents, it appears to be fine, but I'd like to get it cleaned up anyway and get this out of the way. Otherwise, the other springs for the hanger and the roller cages all seems to be good. So we're going to clean this up first. Saw there, I decided to just soak the Positron 2 derailleur in some solvent overnight to loosen up that grease. It was proving very difficult to get off. So I decided to attack the front freewheel, the other short-lived invention on this bicycle, and both Shimano inventions. And I realized that I'd rather be safe than sorry. So I actually ran up to one of the bike stores to consult with an old Schwinn expert and see what the process was for undoing all this. Because as you can see, it's very rusty. I can soak the whole thing in evaporust, which I may ultimately end up doing, because what he determined was that there were some special tools to remove this. There's 4 notches in this top of this bearing race that would normally on a non-freewheel crank system would be what's holding the whole chain rings and the chain ring guard together on the crank, and that's got to come off counterclockwise. So I'm just going to stick some penetrating oil in there. Since I don't have the tool, we discussed possibly trying to figure out how to make a tool with a series of washers, a set of washers. The bottom washer would have the notches in it, the top washer wouldn't. You'd weld those together, and then you'd weld a nut on there that you could use a crescent wrench on, and then be able to slide the whole thing over and get it on there. But we're not going to do that. So I'm going to gently try to use a punch I don't want to damage the outside of these because this is the race where the bearings travel. And if I don't get anywhere, then I'm just going to go with the Evapo-Rust. Now that ring's moving, so this is positive. Let's see what this does. Okay, that comes off. I've got this tool, which possibly can get this ring off. Yep. So that's coming off. Well, that at least is going to clean up the ball bearings and the pawls. Okay. Up, there's a little ring there. 2 spacers. And here comes the ball bearings. Better put those over here. There's another spacer. That's a total of 3 spacers. And here's some kind of a little bit of wider spacer. So let's see what else we have here. Well, maybe then this comes up and off. And there's a whole set of ball bearings on the bottom. Put that over here. I'm going to use a different lid just in case they're different sizes. There's a ring. I can see that there's a ring that's holding these pawls. So in the meantime, I'm going to put all the ball bearings. I did determine they were the same size. And put some solvent in there. Let those soak. And I'm going to soak the bottom bracket bearings in with the same solution that the derailleur is in. And I might as well soak the other items that I took off in this one. Put a little bit more solution in there. So hopefully the camera is going to be able to pick this up. The way that these these pawls are flexing is that there's a ring that is in here, and if I take it out gently, then out comes the pawl. And the other side of it here. There's the other pawl. And so it's like a spring, but it's a ring. It's a ring spring. There it is. Now, I would love to be able to get that whole thing off there, but it's not necessary, and I'm sure you have to have a special tool that has these 4 notches in it. Why they didn't just make a hex on the top here to be able to do that is beyond me, but you'd have to ask engineers who worked at Shimano back in the 70s. And what we're going to do now with this is fill it with evapor rust. And unfortunately, this is not going to fit, so I'm going to have to do this in segments where I'm doing one side of the crank and then I'm going to have to do the other side. So, and hopefully we have enough evapor rust to cover the whole thing. Yep, covered one side of the crank and all of the chain rings. So that is going to soak for at least a day, if not longer, and then we'll have to flip it. And since I've got things soaking in evapor rust, I've got these are the original 4 clamps for the cables, and then this is the one that I got at the bike shop the other day. It actually has a little rust on it, not as bad as these, but I'm going to stick all those in the evapor rust as well. And as long as we're doing it, we might as well put the gooseneck in there and the 2 pedals. Since I decided to put so many pieces and parts in either the solvent or the evapor rust, I didn't have much else left to do without getting into a big operation for a whole episode. So for the rest of this episode, I decided I'll just start on the frame, which, by the way, on the bottom bracket here is really full of grease. So we're going to use some, I've just got degreaser mixed in with some hot water down here, and spray a little bit on the back there and go to town. Frame cleaned up as best we could. That bottom bracket area around the kick stand housing and whatnot was extremely greasy, as you could probably tell from the video. And but we're gonna have to do a good job with the Meguiar's compound on here to bring the shine back. Of course, we have our various items in the evaporust and various items in the solvent. So we're going to let those soak for a couple days and come back and clean those up, and probably put the Meguiar's compound on the frame for next episode. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope to see you next time on Featherstone Bicycles.